Hola and welcome to a new episode of the Roofless Dog and Pony Show, the first one of 2023. It's been more than a month since the last one. We closed 2022 with such a great collection of paintings, and now we're ready to kick off 2023 with our first proposal for a painting collection. My name is Julio Panisello. I am the dream alchemist at Roofless Painters. With each episode, sorry, I'm reading the script essentially, but what we do is present the concept or the theme of our next painting collection, and every 2 weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks, we sort of like create a theme or propose a theme, and then we reconvene, we get together remotely and in person, and we propose creating paintings around the theme. And hi, Robert. So this is going to be the first, everyone, it's going to be the first collection. And usually every time, we've been doing this for many years, but every time or every first collection, every first proposal, it kind of like determines the tone of the rest of the year. We closed last year, 2022, painting portraits of people holding blank pages. And we started 2022 with people holding white flags. So it was a beautiful way to finish a 17 collection journey throughout the year. So there's a lot going on. We try to also connect the themes with something contemporary, something that's happening around us. With every episode, we reveal the theme of our next painting collection. So you can find out what we will be painting next and also the reason why. We explain where the painting theme comes from and how it relates to our contemporary time. We explore, although this time it's going to be a little bit difficult. We explore different possibilities for visual representation of the concept, using images of paintings throughout art history as inspiration, while also citing stylistic and historical references. We try to bring up images of paintings with a broad stylistic range, so anyone who is watching or reading about this theme can feel identified, or can feel like there's room for every single interpretation or translation rather. So I'm just gonna move forward, but I just wanted to bring this. I don't know if it's going to be able. Yeah, so this is a mural that was recently painted in LA. I don't have the exact details where, but it depicts a very famous celebrity, I guess, in LA and California and beyond. So on December 17th, a very famous wild mountain lion who roamed in Griffith Park for almost 12 years, passed away. He was euthanized. And it made the news at this here, and all the local channels, the LA Times. We were familiar with P22, but after the passing and after reading the stories, we understood how its symbolism and its importance, how it really affected a community of people that followed P22, a lot of conservationists, a lot of artists, but also a lot of people that identified or associated with the journey and the life of P22. So we thought that maybe it would be a good idea to start the year by paying tribute to P22. We'll explain a little bit the story and also the symbology and the associations and why he became such an important icon of the city, but also of many communities that live here. So P22 was a wild mountain lion who resided in Griffith Park. Griffith Park, just to give you a little bit of perspective, it's the largest urban park in the nation. It's 5 times larger than Central Park, and So it's part of the city, and it's a very important element or part of living in LA. So yeah, he was discovered because there were cameras set up in Griffith Park trying to capture the image of the lion, and we'll explain that one of the cameras captured that very famous image that National Geographic, let me just bring up the image, used in a 2015, I believe. This is the famous image that made him famous, essentially. So let me just kind of like go back and explain that he was identified in 2012. He has been the subject of significant media attention, including books, TV shows, works of art, and other stuff. So it is believed that he was born, P22 was born around 2010 in the western part of the Santa Monica Mountains, to a mountain lion we learned named P001. So an unknown female lion. Sometimes before 2012, P22 headed east within the Santa Monica mountain range towards Griffith Park, and he settled after crossing two major freeways, the 405 and the 101. So apparently he wasn't the only one who crossed or attempted to cross the freeways. And one of the reasons why a lot of conservationists used his image and his life is because they wanted to bring attention to the fact that the wildlife that live around us is running out of space, and also it's finding it difficult to live in their own proper habitat. So the fact that he survived the crossing of the 405, the two major freeways, the fact that he evaded traffic, which is one of the main causes for mountain lions and other wild animals to die, believe it or not. So that in itself became something that was highlighted, and again, the issue of multiple mountain lions suffering not a successful crossing was brought up, and nobody knows the exact journey and where he crossed, but the thing is that he moved from the Santa Monica Mountains west side towards Griffith Park, which is part of the Santa Monica Mountains. By the way, we paint in Griffith Park every Tuesday, so that's why we wanted to also bring up this topic and subject, and also this important event. So in the U.S. National Park Service noted that P22's 9 square mile Griffith Park habitat, 9 square mile, it's not a huge space, is too small for an adult cat by a factor of 31, and that it was unlikely he would ever find a mate there. So essentially, he just lived there for 12 years by itself. And we're going to try not to delve too much into the traumatic experiences or the tragic aspects of his life, because I find that that's the easy way to tell the story, and there are plenty of traumatic experiences which we will talk about, but I think it's important also to mention the positive aspects, the fact that his life unified, galvanized a movement, and became the symbol for people. This was very interesting as well to learn, people who identified with journeys through land in which lives are at risk, the difficulty of crossing man-made physical barriers and surviving. So there is a component of this that we learned. We take things for granted. We also don't understand that we all have different realities and experience our surroundings differently. So there is a really passionate and positive association between a lot of people who have traveled the land and crossed artificial borders to make it here and call this their home. So that's one aspect of what he represents. So the reason why he was named P22, P is short for Puma, and 22 refers to him being the 22nd Puma in the ongoing Puma study. I'm saying Puma. I have no idea if that's the right. It's the right pronunciation. National Geographic photographer Steve Winter worked with. Oh, perfect timing. Worked with someone else, a wildlife biologist with the National Park Service, to photograph P22. He spent 15 months putting up camera traps in Griffith Park. The cameras got stolen, by the way, which I think it's interesting to mention, but this wasn't just like a easy peasy intervention. We want to also make sure there are a lot of voices. There's a lot of talk about conspiracy theories, but we have learned that there were numerous people who have done things properly, who have addressed the treatment, the approach of P22 in the best possible way, considering the very limiting possibilities or conditions that he lived through. A mountain lion in the wild lives up to 9 years, apparently. He lived 12 years. So not that he was in the wild, because again, 31, a factor of 31, I'm not sure exactly what that means. To me, it means like, the area where he lived, the 9 square mile, is 31 times smaller than what mountain lions kind of like are supposed to have in order to have like their own proper environmental, place to live, I guess. But anyhow, nevertheless, the cameras got stolen. But eventually, there was one of the cameras that got triggered. That's the image that became famous. So this is the one of the initial most famous P22 images under the Hollywood sign, and the image appeared in the December issue of National Geographic of 2013. A year later, in 2014, the National Park Service reported that P22 had contracted a disease, a skin disease, from being exposed to rat poison. He was treated, and then he was released. So this happened a few times. And one of those times, or I think the first time that he got captured, to treat him, they installed a GPS collar, so they were able to track him. So he was constantly monitored, I guess, throughout his entire life. And anyhow, so a lot of people, I just mentioned the fact that people associate his journey with their own personal journey, but there's also I found a very interesting article mentioning the first person who discovered. By the way, we're going to call this painting series P22. We're going to put on the photo album that we share with people who register to our sessions all the images that we have gathered of P22 through the years. He died in 2017, but there is a memorial, a festival that the city will host in February, the beginning of February, honoring his life. The tickets are up for sale. And actually, the entrance is free, so authorities are recommending to book your spot. It's going to be on Monday. Never mind. No, sorry. It's going to be in February 2nd, I believe, from 12 to 2. yeah, so it's not just an animal who passed away, just it was represented a lot more than that. So let me just bring this article by, they describe the first person who discovered P22. His name was Miguel Ordeñana, who first discovered P22 with the legendary mountains lion paw print. Apparently, the first sign of his existence wasn't his physical existence, but a print that he left behind, the mountain lion. Also, he started compiling stories of people who have been impacted by P22's story, not just people who interacted with P22s, but people that whose stories resonated with the story of the mountain lion. He's also an advocate for encouraging others to making or putting efforts to make LA and other big cities much more hospitable and accommodating to urban wildlife. There's a big story about the loss of biodiversity, and I think we can do a lot of things even though we may not be living in a very biodiverse space compared to other habitats, but our surroundings, we do cohabitate with wildlife in LA and other bigger cities. And sometimes we regard them as nuisance and on our way, when in fact, I would argue that it's the opposite. Ordeñana says his life story parallels P22's tale of survival. When his grandparents came to the US from Nicaragua with nothing, they felt ignored and voiceless in the face of constant persecution. Wildlife often shares the same experience, he says. The parallels between Ordeñana and P22's stories have inspired many people who have been historically excluded from the conversation field, particularly among LA's large Latino population. As an environmental educator at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County, he wants people of color to know that their voices are critical in conversations about the future of wildlife conversation. I thought that was an interesting take on going beyond the anecdotes and the sightings of P22. Also, it explains why there's such passion and advocacy and emotion with P22 stories, and also with his ultimate, with his loss, essentially. He was euthanized. I'll explain a little bit more about what they found and how tragic it was. But let me see if I can also find, so there were, in 2014, I talked about the skin infection. Apparently, towards the end of his journey, his behavior changed. He appeared to be agitated. He also ventured further from his usual range, and no one is arguing that those changes were not caused because he just became erratic. It was caused because it's confinement, and rather than changes, there were consequences of having a lonely, really isolated life in a very small space, in a public urban park, for heaven's sakes. So on December 12th, a few days before he was euthanized, he was located in a Los Feliz homeowner's backyard and tranquilized by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So initially, they just wanted to do everything they could to make sure that they would treat any found diseases or conditions, and then release him back into the wild. And that was the focus of the specialist that treated him first. He was also moved to San Diego for further analysis, but they found so many issues. The skull was fractured. Internal organs were also damaged. One eye was affected. They decided, or they proposed, the diagnosis or the hypothesis was that he was struck by a car. So maybe he attempted some sort of like crossing somewhere, and this time, he was struck by a car, by a vehicle. He also had severe arthritis. He was emaciated. He lost a lot of weight. They found a lot of things that were piling up, and then they decided that the best course of action, they were ready to do any kind of surgery and any kind of treatment, but they just euthanized him. So in another article, Miguel Ordeñana, the same person I talked about who discovered P22 a year prior the actual death, he applied for the Natural History Museum to receive the remains of P22 after his passing for research purposes, and thought that P22 would be put in a display at the museum. That's not what happened, but he works at the Natural History Museum, and he requested that P22 would be part of the collection, I guess. It's not what happened. I don't know exactly what happened, but I'll find out. When he passed away, a lot of politicians, governor of California, just made a statement. P22 survival on an island of wilderness in the heart of Los Angeles captivated people around the world and revitalized efforts to protect our diverse native species and ecosystems. Let me just put some other images. A few murals have popped up. This is one of the murals that was painted. LA Times did an obituary after he passed away. Chloe, thanks for mentioning that the person who was in charge of the social media presence of P22 hosted a birthday party at Skylight Books a while ago. So other artists have come forward and have done renditions, not only in mural form, but also with paintings and drawings. And we thought it would be a good idea, and that's essentially it. We thought it would be a good idea to pay tribute, learn more, understand why there's such connection. A lot of the representatives of the indigenous communities living in LA also came forward. There's also a connection between animal lovers and people with indigenous heritage that it's very powerful in the sense that they see P22 as one of the original people or beings in their land, essentially. So a co-citizen in his own right. So a lot of communities have come forward and have expressed how P22 has become and is such an iconic figure, image that represents so much. Yes, there's a lot of gossip about sightings, and he attacked a Chihuahua, and there's some news that he generated. He ate a koala in the LA Zoo. He jumped a fence, like a 9 feet fence. So there's a lot of gossip and stories and headlines that he created throughout his life. But what's struck me as powerful was the passion and the emotion and the sense of loss. I wasn't able to understand. I was unaware, and I didn't see it through the lens of this association between what he represented and what other people have gone through, lived, or what's the history that they have. So for that reason, and I think I'm just going to close briefly this presentation. But with that, there are other images. We have like several images that we're going to use. of P22, but essentially we're going to do an animal portrait. We're going to bring up images. We're going to compile a library of images. We're starting the painting collection tomorrow with a webinar, 11 to 1 Pacific time. It's $20. It's 3 hours. You can join with any materials that you have. It doesn't matter. We're going to paint with oil. But if you just have a pencil and you want to join, we're going to talk about the history. We're going to go into detail about other people that defended and are working hard to protect his legacy. And but in the case that you don't want to join any of our amazing and spectacular, incredible sessions, and you just want to do your own portrait of P22 and then send it to us and share it, we'll be so excited to show it, to make it part of the collection. So, and on that note, let me see if I can just do this and just mention that we're going to send an email. We finished announcing the next read, the next book, the winter read. But I just want to take these few last moments. If you're live, you get 50 gold points, gold stars. And if you're watching this later, just wanted to say thank you for watching and making it to the end. We are going to read Full Bloom. It's a biography of Georgia O'Keeffe written by Hunter Drohojowska Philp. And it's the best biography ever written of Georgia O'Keeffe. And we're excited because the author lives near us. She lives in LA, and we have talked to her, and she's very excited to know that we're going to be reading this book for the next 10 weeks, I believe. So, Full Bloom, we're going to send an email today. If you're not on our email list, please just subscribe. You can go to the link in our bio and you'll find a subscription button. We highly recommend it. So you're updated with everything we do. And one of the things that we do is collectively tackle a piece that tells a story about an artist, because every time we read something, we are transformed and we're just simply different painters. So yeah, Full Bloom, Hunter Drohojowska Philp. Please buy it or just check it out from the library. Join us tomorrow. We're painting P22 portraits. We're going to have an amazing year. We have retreats, painting getaways coming up. We're going to talk more about those. And we have new locations that we're excited to announce, and also a few events coming up in January and February. We had to postpone the painting at the Kindred Spirits Care Farm a couple of weeks ago. I think I read this was the 8th river thing that we have experienced. A lot of rain coming our way, and temperatures are dropping lower than usual, but we have scheduled the Kindred Spirits Care Farm on the 20th. It's a Friday. We can wait to meet Carrington and Gwen John, the two turkeys that have been named after two female painters that we love so much. And so we're going to be painting them, and we hope you join us. We had to postpone. Thank you so much, and we'll paint together soon.